Hi, everybody, and welcome to this AOS up and coming as we are getting down to the wire with reviewing different different streams, different factions here. And today's faction is Sylvaneth. Now, we do want to remind you, if you're just dipping in because you're a Sylvaneth fan and you're otherwise new to the channel, give us a like and a subscribe. We promise we do a lot of AOS content. We'll be playing 4th edition games here coming up pretty soon when 4th edition launches. Live streamed games. We do a lot of hobby content centered around AOS and some hobby content centered around other games as well. So please do consider giving us that like. Our schedule, by and large, looks like this. We're not, like I said, doing games for the next couple of weeks as we gear up for 4th edition. But we will be back, and these are our regular times. Monday at 6 p.m. if you're a member. Saturday at 10 a.m. if you are a member or not a member. And we're doing these shows for a while in the coming future. So be here at 9 in the morning. Now, this Saturday at 10 in the morning, we'll be doing sort of a review show of everything going on in the Age of Sigmar world right now. We'll be chatting. We're gonna do a full, inspired by one of our mandrills, one of our members, important member of the community. We'll be doing a full ranking of all the previews, S tier ranking of all the previews, and we're gonna talk about lethality, how lethal is 4th edition. I think people are very confused about that. I know I am. And we're probably not going to clear up any answers, almost for sure. Just ask more questions. But be there for that. Being here today with us is not Saray, but Brad, who is our resident Sylvaneth player. Brad, how's it going?
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Finally, had a chance to pop on here.
I know, it's great. And I know you're also looking to do, hoping we'll have you here tomorrow for the corn run through. Actually, I didn't even look at the bottom of this one. I guess corn's tomorrow. That's the only one left.
Oh yeah, you know what?
Did you
Let's
did
just
that?
double check.
Let's check. Let's
check
make sure.
if Warren is actually still in the game. Let's see.
Yep.
Tomorrow
Yep.
is mounting a skull. Yes.
All right.
Warren confirmed still be an Age of Sigmar.
Brad, what we've been doing with people who have these factions kind of near and dear to their heart, like yourself and Sylvaneth, is we've been saying, give us a gut check. Like right out of the gate, you woke up this morning, you read the preview, right out of the gate, tell us your initial kind of reaction.
Initial reaction, hey, pretty good. We kept a couple of the things I was really a little worried that they might totally reinvent, in particular Strike and Fade. We're still about trees. I honestly wouldn't have minded if they had gotten rid of the trees entirely.
You mean the awakened wildwoods?
Here we are. I still need to carry a giant bucket of trees around with me everywhere. We haven't seen, spoiler, we haven't seen the War Scroll for the Wildwood, so we don't know if there's any key mechanic that they've changed there. But I think overall, I'm feeling pretty good. Like the storm has passed and we're all alive. However, when I thought about it a little bit more, there's a few kind of subtle changes or a few other little things that we lost that might make it a little bit more challenging. But then they also, one hand, might have taken a few things away, but then they gave us some pretty big stuff. On the War Scrolls, they gave us a lot more healing, which makes a lot of sense. It always made sense that the Army of Life is the strongest healing army.
Yeah.
So, yeah, overall, I think I'm feeling pretty good. I feel great about Alariel. I feel great about some of the other units. So.
Yeah. Let's jump in here. Now, I skimmed. We always start by talking about the lore and asking if there's any weird nuggets of information that was new. We got a few way back in the day, a couple weeks ago, every now and then, and for a long time now, I don't think we have. Seems like nothing particularly new here. Did you see anything, Brad, that was like, oh, I've never heard that about the Sylvaneth before?
I didn't really, actually. If anything, they kind of explained mostly just like who the Sylvaneth are, and not so much like what they've done in the setting. Glorials was a big part of the transition from second to third and sort of the story of all that. And for all that, like it hasn't that's almost sort of happened almost kind of off screen. It's her right of life was the reason why Kragnos
Is
got free.
right? Yeah. Oops.
That yeah, it was like oops, but then it was kind of like wait, what, that happened?
Right. Right.
So yeah, it's fine. They just explain why these aren't elves. These are tree spirits, and otherwise just kind of generally what they're about.
Yeah.
So nothing really big to glean from it.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Okay, we get into battle traits here, and there aren't a lot, but the implications are kind of a big deal. First and foremost, you kind of mentioned this. We get endless growth, and yeah, you're going to see the theme of the day here is awakened wildwoods, and we'll talk about those in a bit. Sort of, I agree with you, Brad. Kind of crazy that they did not show the awakened wildwood war scroll because this faction seems to be they dance all around it. They show how you make them, one way to make them anyway. They show all the abilities that use them. So endless growth is nice. D3 at the end of every turn. You heal D3. That's your turn. That's your opponent's turn. That's kind of good.
Yeah. You're going to be hugging a lot of trees.
You're going to be hugging a lot of trees. The range has, as Ryan in chat points out, ranges have kind of dropped from this 9-inch range, or even depending on what season you picked, you could get a 12-inch range, I believe, right? To the winter.
Yeah, I was running. Yeah.
Yeah, you're doing the dwindling range now, right? Or even so those guys are like, yes, we've been practicing for this. But Holy Within 6 is yeah. Here's a question for you that we don't know. Currently, when you set up an Awakened Wildwood, you can choose to put 1, 2, or 3 pieces down. Is this just going to mean people are very incentivized to put the 3 pieces down?
I suspect that will still be true, that you can put 1, 2, and 3 down.
Yeah.
I think actually, given that when we see the spell in a minute here, it's an unlimited spell.
Yeah.
I suspect that you're going to want to just be putting lots of individual trees down, because your return is greater. It's going to be really hard to fit more than one on a crowded board, and then the more trees you put down the heart, because they still have to be outside of probably 3 of each other and 2. So I think if you have 2 boxes of them, you'll have 6 individual trees. I think you're probably going to want to spread them out across the whole board.
Let's move to the right for a second. We'll talk a lot more about healing here today. Let's move to the right for a second and talk about Walk the Hidden Paths. This is just quite simply a once per turn, your movement phase only, teleport one of your units from an Awakened Wildwood to another Awakened Wildwood. Not much more to it than that. This kind of already exists, yes?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. As you were pointing out, this we don't see when we get to Durthu's War Scroll, we don't see a inbuilt teleport on him. So this may be one of the major. This may be the only way you're doing this. We don't know who are the little guys that have it. Tree Revenants.
Tree Revenants. The thing about the Tree Revenants is currently it's on their musician.
Right.
And we know that musician rules have all changed. So that may mean that becomes a casualty, but that was also kind of the thing that they were all about. They had this other ability where they could use all out defense or all out attack for free. That's kind of not, you didn't care. You didn't want to get them in combat. So that's one where I'm kind of, crossing twigs.
Yeah.
Hoping that they keep that ability, because that was really the reason why you took them. And if they lose that, then they'll need to get something much bigger to.
Yeah. They're in general, they're going to be an unknown, right? Because we also haven't seen a lot of free CP mechanics, and we've been told that we're not going to. So I'm kind of curious. They might actually be seriously, totally rewritten. Okay, then finally we get the one I think that probably people are most abuzz about, one way or the other. Strike and Fade. Okay, so this has changed a bit, Brad, right? We've got, first of all, you have to do it at the end of your turn. You can't fight in combat and then leave. So it's not So you're sticking around for the combat. Also worth pointing out that you have to be in combat to do this. You can't kill the thing you're in combat with if you want to strike and fade.
That's true.
Yeah. So now that said, as we all know, it's like not that hard to tag into two things, and one of them is like not going to hurt you, like a little hero or something. So in combat, wholly within 6 of the Wildwood, and then you do the standard teleport that all Sylvaneth players are going to be used to, which is within 6 of another Wildwood, outside 9 of an enemy. I guess the thing that feels least the bonus to this is it's the end of any turn.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious. How are you feeling about new Strike and Fade, Brad?
I think that this will be an army where you're going to spend a fair amount of your time with your tape measure, doing a lot of careful trigonometry.
You need everyone's going to need a 6-inch. You need one of the 6-inch templates.
Yeah, you need a little 6-inch stick. Because you're going to be summoning, to set this up, if you're kind of attacking someone on like a flank or something, you're going to need to either have a tree. Here's the thing. There's a situation that might be really a tough one where you already have a tree kind of in the area, but not close enough to the enemy you want to charge, like teleport through and charge into, that you'll still be wholly within 6 inches of the tree to strike and fade. Right. But that tree is not quite close enough for that. And then it actually blocks you from summoning another tree.
Right.
Because they're probably going to need to be outside of 3 inches of each other.
So
there's going to be a lot of like careful setup and really tight. Oh, if I pile in just half an inch, I'm going to be now outside wholly within 6 of the tree. It's going to be potentially a bit tough in some places.
I think a lot of armies. I don't know if you've noticed this, Brad. You've been going through these the previews. I think a lot of armies are being. We're kind of doubling down on what it is that they are being asked to manage, and that makes them unique. Like the Wildwoods have always been a thing for Sylvaneth, but and so is Strike and Fade. But there are builds you can do with Sylvaneth, like heavy beetles and stuff, where you kind of maybe don't need them as much. The Wildwood now is like akin to the Tides for Deepkin. I feel like it is very. This army now is this placement army with the Wildwoods. It always has been. I know that, but they've really delineated it down to that now in this index. Like this is the army is managing Wildwoods. Like
yeah. Which thematically, you're kind of role playing a gardener. Like by the time you're done, and if you've won, like the whole board should be covered in trees.
Yeah.
There's going to be, as we've always said, about the trees, is like it means you need to bring this whole extra models worth or army's worth of models to the table.
Right.
That's not great. I think some folks have been known to use like little just cut out footprints of trees instead of the trees.
Right.
Personally, I think everyone should be cool with that because it's a lot to ask. But it also just make it easier to play around them and play with them, and enemies be playing around them.
Right.
I think I'll say one thing. If there's a particular army out there, we haven't seen this yet, but if there's an army out there that is particularly good at smashing terrain, it's going to be particularly good against Sylvaneth.
Well, that and Steven points out something that has a lot of little chaff units, right? If Cruel Boys are finding that, hey, it's a good idea to take 2-3 units of Hobgrot Slittas. If Skaven have something at a cheap 10-man unit of something, right? Anything that can just have a little person go be somewhere and do something and sit there and have the points for that, also going to be a problem for and also teleporters, right? Canite Shadowstalkers or Daughters of Cain. I can teleport into one of your trees. Now, that said, again, we haven't seen the tree war scroll. I mean, to channel my inner Brett here, literally the Wildwood scroll could have something on it like enemy units can't be set up within 3. It could have something like that. So them leaving the war scroll for the Awakened Wildwood out is maddening almost.
Yeah, well, I'll say one more thing about that. they mentioned when they in the same preview article where they spoiled all that like terrain is changing, it's got health, and
Yeah.
then it said some terrain is going to be able to attack. Um,
Right.
Wildwood's always had that. That's always been part of their flavor. It's the ability everyone forgets about. But
The
if you're
D3
standing
more.
next
Right.
to it, yeah, and so they'll probably have an attack profile. And
Which would be cool.
if it's any good at all, hopefully it's not just a few random, fours and fours.
Right.
If it's any good at all, it's actually going to be kind of neat to be able to spread those around and,
Yeah.
use them actually as an offense. Granted, they don't move, but putting them in inconvenient places for your opponent.
Well, they'll have a 3-inch range, right? I mean, if they have a 3-inch range, that in and of itself starts to become enough to keep people. You're going to have to go into it and to really block out the Sylvaneth player. You'll have to go into it. You have to be within 3. Yeah, I'm imagining like lots of attacks, 5s and 5s, but like mortals on 6s or something. That would be my guess. I think you're right. That'll be fun too to see the trees like whacking anything that tries to get in there.
Yeah.
Okay, now we get some, as always, we get some battle formations. And just like yesterday with Iron Jaws, I kind of think we get what I'm guessing might end up being the worst battle formation. But if you like big trees, if you're like, I got into this army because of the Tree Lord, the Ancient, and the Spirit of Durthu, and you have 4 or 5 big trees that you're using, then I think this is pretty good. I don't know. But at the same time, it's, convert my D3 to a 3 automatically for my whole or for one unit of my subfaction monsters. Feels okay, I guess. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, there is a list in 3rd edition. There currently is a list with Open Brow where you could take a bunch. Your tree lords become battle line. So you'd run, 5 or 6 of the big tree lords, including Durthu and including the tree lord agent. If you did that with this, I mean, your guys are going to be at full health, just as long as you're near your trees all the time. Actually, it'd be kind of fun. I mean, but I think it'll be one of those where it's a bit of a meme list. It's like, I'm just going to stomp around with my big stompy trees. Won't be particularly good. It'll depend on how well they'll be able to hold objectives and do all the other stuff you need to do with like low model count, kind of medium-sized bases. They're not particularly large bases.
No, they're not.
Fun. It'll be one of those. Yeah.
Yeah. The first time I thought about it and looked at a Tree Lord base, I was like, oh, that's like a large cavalry base essentially.
They're sniffing like sideways on these little cavalry bases.
It's like the next size up from a Vanguard, I think, right? It's like not that big. Okay, so then they mention the other ones. They say protect their habitats with bloodthirsty vigor. My guess is this is going to be something, they say smaller forest spirits. That might be dryads, that might be tree revenants, spite revenants. They might get some kind of bonus when they're near a wildwood. Shocker. You've got malevolent outcasts terrify their opponents. So this is currently, I was asking you about this because I knew that there's an outcast keyword that doesn't really do much, right? And you told me it's only Drisha and is it Spite Revenants or Tree Revenants?
Drisha and Spite Revenants. They're the really particularly angry trees. The bald ones. And yeah, it'll just be those 2. That's the thing about these ones. All the ones they showed and then the ones that they mentioned, they're all leaning into a specific unit type, which isn't my favorite way to approach subfactions because it kind of encourages you to funnel into just like a handful of war scrolls in a range that's already pretty small. So it's like if you run the giant trees, it's like, well, they only have 3 war scrolls, and then all your other guys just aren't getting any benefit.
I think,
which is fine. It's fine. You can make a functional army out of that, but it all depends. If you have a combination of really good war scrolls and then this one thing that makes those really good ones good, then it'll be the one you see.
Right. Exactly. I agree with you. And I think I'll cite the Daughters of Cain current battle tome as an example. It has 6 subfactions in there. 5 of them tech into a unit or two. And then the 5th one, or the 6th one, Hagnar, is just all around good for everybody. And I kind of wish they would do that. Like, and some of the sub-faction previews we've seen, they have done that with, right? Like, I don't think, Brad, you're a Nighthaunt guy too. I don't think any of the Nighthaunt ones, maybe they a little bit imply that they'd be teching into some units, but some of them were not really at all. These ones are, yeah, it doesn't sound like there's like a neutral one. Like, I mean, heck, you know what? I think every Sylvaneth player looking at this right now would be like, give me just one that expands my range from Holy Than 6 to Holy Than 9.
Yeah.
That. Right.
It'd be like, okay, now these are. I'll say one thing about this. And we did, when we went over the battle traits, I forgot to mention, we lost the Seasons of War.
Right.
Which was a thing they added in 3rd edition, and it was just one extra little bonus you could get, way to customize your army. You pick one of 4 seasons. Actually, I do kind of miss it because it was a neat way to say, especially, I painted up mine to be like autumn, and be like, well, I'm going to pick the autumn season, and you have a little bit of narrative there.
Right.
There's kind of a missed opportunity here. They have 4 sub-factions. They could have said spring, summer, fall, winter.
Yeah.
And then have some sort of theme that goes along with, I'm the winter ones, and historically the winter ones had exploding 6s on their attack because they were really brutal and vicious.
Right.
That's kind of that's a missed opportunity. I would rather have had that and have that be like a flavor than focusing on the units.
But I think I think the reason they haven't done that, Brad, is the same reason they're just backing away from Hollowed Knights and Hammers and Sigmars. They don't want people restricted in their painting. They want you to be able to take, build and paint your winter themed Sylvaneth, and then have whatever rules you want to take, without having to go up to a new opponent and say, all right, just so you know what I mean, like.
Yeah.
So I kind of get why they didn't do that, but also I do agree. I think before we go on here and talk about the spell, I do want to say that I think I'm getting the sense that this is another one of those previews, unlike Cruel Boys, even unlike Iron Jaws, where there's so much we're missing from. We're missing more than we're missing almost too much to make sense of this. I don't feel that way about every preview. Like I said, both the Orc previews, I was like, I got a pretty good sense of what's going on here. If you even just like, let me toss out this concept, right? We don't have the War Song of Evidence data scroll here, or war scroll here. Imagine what he might do, not just his spell, but his ability, whatever. Like he's super crazy. He could do all kinds of things. He could invoke a season each turn. You know what I mean? Like, so there's a lot missing. Tree Song. This is nice to see.
Yeah, I think we had to see this. Now, granted, we knew we were going to see one spell, and usually in these previews, it's been the unlimited spell. This is the one that made sense as the unlimited spell, because previously, this is the spell all your wizards just automatically knew, in addition to all the other spells they knew. So that was a natural fit. Kind of predicted it would be there. It's good to know that you'll have multiple shots at casting this, because we've seen in some of our games on stream, if the Sylvaneth player can get shut down on their spell, and this is in a world where you could pick 3 overgrown terrain.
Right.
If they got shut down and weren't able to put a new one somewhere in their opponent's territory, because you couldn't put overgrown terrain in your opponent's territory, it just kind of like the whole army just kind of crumbled.
Right.
That's going to be, I think, even more true now, but at least you're going to get multiple bites at it. It'll mean that you're going to want to take probably minimum, I think, 2 wizards in a Sylvaneth army. I think probably 3 in a single army. So, now we really want to see the War Song. What does he do?
Right.
Does he have any casting bonuses?
Right.
Because that's going to be kind of crucial.
I think so, yeah. So this is interesting. It kind of creates this bizarre economy. If there are fewer than 3 Awakened Wildwoods, you can place an Awakened Wildwood. If there are 3 Awakened Wildwoods, you can heal all the Awakened Wildwoods. So this is sort of interesting because there are instances where you actually might want your opponent to destroy an Awakened Wildwood, so you can summon a new one somewhere else.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad we went. I take back what I was saying about covering the board in trees. You can't do that. You only get 3.
You only get 3. Well,
yeah.
from this spell, like somebody might who currently brings one in. Is it Tree
Right
Lord
now,
Ancient?
it's the Tree Lord Ancient has one, and then there was also an artifact
An
that
artifact,
lets you
yeah.
basically get the Tree Lord Ancient ability, and you can give it to him.
Yeah, for whatever reason, without being a Sylvaneth player myself, but playing against the army a lot, 3 seems not like enough. It seems like, I think, especially with the 6-inch range, I know that objectives are only so many places on the board, and objectives are smaller now, but it doesn't seem like enough to me. It seems like you're really going to want, like, I'm thinking like 5.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be on objectives, and then you at least want one kind of backfield one where you've got some support, maybe like your Kurnoth bows are hanging out or something like that. And then maybe you want one deep in your opponent's territory for a battle tactic or something. But 3 seems tight. It's maybe
You're gonna need that one in your backfield for sure, because if you're gonna use Strike and Fade,
right.
you need somewhere to fade too. If they're both up in the front lines, right up in your enemy's face,
They're just charging you.
It's going to be really hard to be outside of 9 at the end of that teleport. So, tree placement is going to be really critical. It's going to be the major skill here, and I think for your opponent, tree management.
Yes.
You don't even need to destroy them. You almost don't even want to destroy them as an opponent. You want to just be near them and shut off the teleportation. Once someone players at 3.
Right. Which is interesting. I think they have sort of set it up to decentivize an opponent from destroying them. But then there will be instances where it's probably the obvious move, right? And, I don't know. Like, if trees... Andreas was saying, if trees are just 10 wounds with a 4-up save, they're not surviving more than 1 turn. I don't know. Like, the fact that everyone can cast a spell where they summon trees again, if my opponent is putting energy and effort into destroying the trees, and I can just summon more, I kind of like it.
I think it works. I think the scenario where the Sylvaneth player is staying at 3 max trees and your opponent is continually destroying them, if they were 10 wounds, it means you have to throw a reasonable unit at them. In a world where the average unit hits on 4s now, humans and orcs and stuff, they had to put a real unit into that. That's not some chaff screen doing that.
Right.
That's great. That's cool. Because then it'll give me a chance to summon a tree somewhere else. I think there's so much of this is going to have to be like, it's not just how we have to actually see the rules in action. You have to see it like humans using these abilities against each other.
I know.
And then it'll really depend on the skill of the players. I think Sylvaneth were always kind of like a high skill ceiling.
Yeah, army. Very, very easy for the army to fall apart with a few mistakes or something. Not even mistakes, just like we've seen, like you said, things going wrong. Like, I think you and I played a game where you strike and faded Belthanos, but he didn't make his charge, and he had this, or the endless spell doesn't go off or whatever, and you're like, cool, let's see if I can make a 9-inch charge, right? Like, it's hard,
Yeah.
They mentioned go ahead. Sorry, Brad.
I would say one last thing about that is I think probably, and maybe this would be better enough for the sum up, but like I think probably this Sylvaneth will be doing more conventional fighting where I just moved up to you. I didn't teleport through the trees. I think one thing they've done here is by clamping down on that, you're going to be the scenario where you put a tree not right up in your opponent's face so you can teleport out of it, but actually a little behind where you think the combat's going to be. And you're just going to use it you're going to walk up into combat and then strike and fade away, or you're going to walk up into combat and then just use the healing to keep you going.
Right.
And you're not going to be using teleport shenanigans. That kind of stuff I think is probably going to happen a little bit more because you want to protect yourself and you want to protect your trees. So.
Yeah, I think so too. The other spells they mention are Vengeful... Implore vengeful spirits to guide your blades to the targets. That's probably some kind of 6 critical mechanism, I'm guessing. And summon writhing masses of tentacles to strangle and constrict your enemies. Could be some movement debuffing, or no run. No, we've seen some no runs and abilities, so that'll be interesting. Okay, then we get to our war scrolls. So we're back to showing off the queen bees, and here she is, Alariel. I think she looks pretty good. Yeah. I know that she can do bonkers damage on her currently with the beetle. Looks like the beetle has all been rolled into one. How does her, before we get to abilities, Brad, you're more familiar with her than I am. What does everything else look like here?
Okay, so her wheel is basically the same as it was before, so or almost the same. So 3+ save, 16 health, that's great, it's unchanged. She's move 14, which is a lot. She used to be move 16 at her top bracket, so she lost 2 inches of movement, but I don't know if you're really complaining about that. 14 is still great.
With fly, right?
Fly.
Yeah.
Yeah, 14 and fly, which is great. We saw there she's got a ward.
She's got 6 up ward, 3 cast, yeah.
Yeah, nice durability there. She was a 3-cast wizard. She's still a 3-cast wizard. That's great. She never had a casting bonus. She still doesn't. Okay. Oh no, I'm sorry. She can She can lean into that with the life blue, which is new. But then otherwise, her combat stats. I think the big thing that I'm celebrating, and if players who are like non-Sylvaneth players probably wouldn't spot this, she can actually fight with her spear now.
Oh, so it used to just be a throwing weapon?
Her spear was only a shooting attack, and then when she got in combat, she only had her little talon dwindling, her little wooden hand, and that was 4 attacks, 3s and 4s, no rend, 1 damage.
Oh,
but if you happen to do a damage on it, there's a chance you would kill the opponent.
Okay.
That was like, whatever. That was go to Candyland and you kill someone. So now she actually has a real fighting profile, in addition to the beetle's attacks. Which got a little bit weaker, but not that much.
Yeah.
I'm actually she really is good in combat now, and I'm happy about that.
Yeah. Did the beetle used to do 5 damage? I don't know that it really matters. 4.
Yeah, the beetle used to do 5 damage, but it was only 4 attacks. So now it's 6 attacks.
I'll take more attacks and the plus to wound, because we know we can get a plus to hit if we need it. So best case scenario, she's 6, 3, 2, 2, 4. And by best case scenario, I mean best case scenario that we know, right? That's pretty good. I'll take that. Then, once you get to like 4, 5, 6 damage, I kind of stop caring. It becomes less interesting, right? Like the wow factor of going up damage starts to fall apart once you get like past 4. Okay, yeah, she doesn't degrade very much. I'm again, Brad, I brought this up the other day. I'm again starting to see a world in which, if we're looking for how can we speed the game up even more, the battle damage that units are getting on them is, I'm kind of just like, is this actually worth it to even occupy space on a war scroll anymore? We pick one thing and we drop 1 or 2 attacks from it is what tends to happen. I guess it is.
Yeah. It's a margin thing now. It still represents that, that if you have an all monster army, your army still isn't at full strength. Even if you have like 5, like Sons of Anarchy, you have 5 guys that are 1 wound each. You're not like still full strength.
Right.
So it's good that it's there. I'd say actually one note about that for Sylvaneth. I think Sylvaneth is one of the armies that benefits most from losing that the table, because Sylvaneth units, their monsters, tabled really, really badly. Like Durthu.
Oh, right. You lost the attack. Yeah.
So bad. Because his first bracket would go from 6 damage to D6. And in her case, Ariel's case, the antler attacks would go from 5 damage to 2 damage.
Oh, wow.
It's just devastating.
Yeah.
So now the fact that you just lose 2 attacks out of 6 at less than half health is great. So very happy about that. And then you're going to heal so much that you're going to heal so much.
You're going to heal so much. Alario, speaking of which, can either get +1 to casting, which is nice. You said she doesn't previously have that, or she can get she can heal 2d3, which is pretty crazy. She could actually heal 3d3. She's a monster in the right subfaction. She can actually heal 3 plus 2d3, which I think is yeah.
She used to heal 2d6,
2d6,
but it was only in your hero phase. So it's one of those where it looks like a nerf at first, but it's actually a buff because now you're doing 2d3 every hero phase.
Okay, her spell is this is cool, right? Now the catch here, you're turning an enemy into a tree. The catch here is that you don't just turn the enemy into the tree, unfortunately. You resolve Tree Song. So, unfortunately, what that means is if you already have... I'm immediately looking for ways to get more than 3 trees on the board. I don't know if it's going to be a thing. This isn't one of them. Because you just resolve Tree Song. If you already have 3 trees, you're not doing anything else. I also don't know that 2d3 is essentially enough to usually destroy a unit, although if it's broken down, I guess you could.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if we see any other tree placing abilities on War Scrolls, if they might also say resolve the effect of Tree Song spell. I don't know if that would work rules-wise, like, because it's a spell, you might be doing something against an ability, but that's a good point. I think this is their way of being like, fun detected.
Right. Don't worry. Yeah. Okay, so it's fine. You know what? She's a 3 cast. Everyone knows all the lore. Everyone gets endless spells. We don't see any of those either. And you guys have pretty good endless spells, honestly, historically anyway. At least this past edition. So she'll make use of her 3 casts. Okay. This is, I think, maybe the coolest thing about her that has changed. We just saw another unit that did this. Can someone remind me who else we saw that's a 4-up, bring people back, that you're like, is it going to become an auto-include? But here she is, and that's what she does. She is old Soulblight rules, right? Old meaning this current edition. Bring on a 4-up at the end of, or not end, but in your movement phase, bring a unit back. Like, pretty great. I don't know.
Yeah, the interesting thing here is they've rolled up her self-resurrect,
right,
that formerly was on life, and her summon into one ability. And like we've seen everywhere, instead of adding new units to the board, she's got an ability that's bringing back old units. That's the way it's going to be. We might even see that with Khorne, somehow, because they lost summoning. So maybe there's a version of Khorne. We'll find out tomorrow. But there's a couple nice takeaways here. One is you're not baking a 200-point unit into her points cost.
With free,
she had
with free dry. Right, yeah.
Yeah, a Tree Lord or 3 Kurnoth Hunters or something. You're not baking that specific point cost into hers.
Right.
So we might see her points go down, maybe. The fact that she's bringing units back, it obviously is powerful, but it's also on a dice roll, and units need to die, so they may not point that quite the same.
Right.
But the other thing is that previously her life bloom was a once per battle roll, and it defaulted to a 6, and then you added the number of the battle round to the die roll. So late in the game, she'd almost automatically come back. But now it's a 4+, so it's a 50-50, but you can keep trying. So if you throw her forward, you're gambling, and she dies right away, there's a decent chance that you're going to, another 4-up and another 4-up, and eventually she might come back, that's nice. I think it's a trade-off, might be more of a side grade, but it's an elegant way of taking what used to be 2 abilities and rolling it into 1 ability, which I was a little worried about. I was worried, she had 7 abilities on her old War Scroll.
Yeah, it was a big War Scroll, right? Houses, yeah, I totally right. We've talked about that. I think I like this because in an army that we don't know this, currently Sylvaneth had this great ability to attempt some version of an alpha strike, right? Like turn 1, just boom. I think like Seeker Revenants or some kind of like one of the fast beetles or something, just throwing like a big blob of 6 into your opponent ASAP. They get killed. All right, bummer, but I can start rolling right away to bring 3 of those guys back. Kind of into that, honestly. And
she can bring back Durthu.
Right, and he can heal up. They can heal. right?
Well, it just goes right up. Especially now, if you're in the one where they heal flat free,
Yeah.
then that's even better. I know Steven's gonna love that.
Yeah.
He
Um,
loves fighting Durthu.
I feel like she's pretty good. Living Battering Ram is fine. This is her rampage. It's fine. It's like whatever. She doesn't strike me as a monster that would have a good monster ability. Um, you know.
Yeah, it is very similar to what she had before. She had an ability that just was a super stomp, and that's basically what this is. So, yeah, she's in all of her themes. All the abilities are there. The one thing she lost was she had built-in retreat, shoot, and charge. But the way that strike and fade works now it can do it in the opponent's phase. That's still kind of represented in the army. So if you really don't want to be her to be in combat, there's ways you can still get her out and move her around.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just sending Mega text to help Joplin get out of the studio right now. I didn't even know he was in here. He's hiding. Okay, so she looks good. We also do get, speak of the devil, Spirit of Durthu. By the way, for the longest time, did anyone else think Spirit of Durthu was a unique character, not like just a spirit of Durthu? I always thought it was a unique character. Okay, here we go. Talk to me about what's changed here. The 3-up save is still there. The slow move. Some of the weapon profiles have changed a bit.
Yeah, Verdant Blast, it lost one attack, but it also was one of the abilities that tabled, so now it's just a fixed 5. That's fine. Guardian Sword, it's only 5 damage now instead of 6, but that damage never goes down, like I mentioned before. At his bottom bracket, the Guardian Sword would go down to 1 damage. It's not going to happen anymore. That's great.
Ouch!
And then when he's bracketed, now he loses 1 attack.
That's bad.
Yeah, it goes to a flat 4 or just a 4 attacks at his top profile. It used to be 3, and then he'd get an additional 1 if he was near the trees. So we'll see that he still has near the trees there.
Yeah.
And then the Massive Healing Talons, more or less the same. They're only hitting on 4s now. They used to hit on, I'd say more or less the same. They hit on 4s now. They used to hit on 2s. But again, they're another one of the abilities that just doesn't bracket at all. So,
yeah.
Still pretty good.
He gets the +1 to hit when he's near a wildwood, and he gets Titanic Duel, which is different, which is -1 attack characteristics of another monster. Pretty nasty, actually. And he does have extra rend against the monsters.
You're going up against. Yeah, he's definitely teched up here to be a monster hunter with the anti-monster on his sword. That's kind of the job that they've given to him. That -1 attacks is going to be great against, I don't know, like Stonehorns or something.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of melee profiles that is going to apply to. Yeah, I'd say overall he looks like he's still going to do what he did before. He lost the Ground Shaker Monstrous Rampage. He used to have that option instead, which was a strike last. I think that was on all the Tree Lords.
Yeah.
We were talking a little earlier. That's probably going to show up on one of the other 2.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. They said they want him to fight monsters, so he gets Titanic Duel.
Yeah, I think I think so too. We're seeing I think we were talking about Stonehorns as an example. Like, depending on who the rider is probably going to actually change the rampage. I think you're going to see a different rampage for sure on a Tree Lord. Different on the Tree Lord Ancient, you can see a different one. Absolutely. Do we know? Can you only do one rampage ability? No, because it doesn't have. Or can we? Can you?
No, I think rampage keyword. It's once per turn army per unique rampage.
Per unique rampage. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Which is cool. It's going to incentivize somebody who wants to have Tree Lord army to take the 3 different ones at least, right?
Yeah.
Okay, he looks good. We get Spite Revenants. These are the mean ones. These are the outcasts. Pretty quick and simple war scroll here. We see what a Spite Revenant, what a Sylvaneth. They don't really have their own like race word. It's just Sylvaneth, I guess. They hit and wound on 3s. Hit on 3s, wound on 4s.
Yeah, that's down. That's down by 1. They used to wound on 3s.
Yeah, so they're like an elf without being an elf. Critical mortals, that's cool. With 3 attacks, that's pretty good. These guys come in little 5-man units, yeah?
Yeah, they come in little 5-man units. They still have their 2 health, which is great. That was the thing they gained in 3rd edition.
And then they shut down commands.
Yeah, that's new. So now this is cool because previously their only special ability was that their attacks did crit mortal, basically.
Right.
That's just baked into their weapons now, and they gave them a new ability on a 3+. The enemy units can't use commands.
If it's infantry.
The timing on this, for the rest of the turn, which is interesting. The timing on this is going to be interesting. I think that the combat abilities are declared at the beginning of the combat phase now, right?
Yeah.
And it's like active player, inactive player. Like you declare all yours, then I declare all mine. So if the active player, this is going to be interesting.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
like the question will be: does the opponent have a chance to use a command before you actually can use your ability that turns off commands?
Well, I think because I was actually looking at this the other day. I think because alt attack and alt defense are actually both reactions. I think those are going to be the 2 main ones you're shutting down. But you'll also shut down overrun. Although again, you can only do this on an infantry unit. Okay. So it would have to be an infantry unit with 3, 4, or 5 wounds that you could shut that down on. So yeah, I don't know. They seem interesting. And keep in mind, we do know, while we don't know exactly what it does, we do know that there's a sub faction that is going to help these guys. It says it makes them scarier. So I don't know what that means, but take what you will. They're in the spotlight. Yeah, I love these guys. These are one of my favorite actual units in the line.
Yeah, these are one of the ones you probably saw the least in 3rd edition. Because you were kind of like, you'd take all your cool big monsters, you'd take your Kurnoth Hunters, you had a few points left over, you spent those on tree revenants, and then the outcasts just kind of got left. Or, I'm sorry, Spite Revenant specifically, because Drycha was really interesting.
Drycha was interesting.
Now, this is, we'll see. They might, competitively they might be relevant with the turning off commands. I think otherwise, they didn't change in any particular negative way other than the wounding on 4s, but you're really just kind of fishing for those 6s with their attacks. So, yeah, I think they're cool. I'd run them now if I would have run them in 3rd. So.
Did they have 3 attacks in 3rd, Ed?
Yeah, there were 3 attacks.
Okay.
And then the champion thing did the same thing it does now.
Okay. Spite Rider Lancers. These are... Spite Rider Lancers. These are the new guys, newer models, the Beetles. Okay, what about these guys, Brad? Because I'll confess, 1, I forget the difference between the 2 Beetles, and then 2, it's been a while since I've played against these guys.
So these guys, overall, they haven't changed very much. They've just kind of refined their role a little bit.
Okay.
They lost 2 inches of move, but I think we're kind of seeing that across the game, that really fast things are all getting just a little bit slower.
Dropping a bit,
but 12 inches fly is still great. So that's not really that big a deal. These were the ones that brought other units or models back. These were the ones that were more like conventional cavalry, where you would fly in and get charge bonuses.
Okay.
They had their attacks are better because they're all charge +1 damage now. And then the anti-cavalry, again, is just signaling you should use these guys to countercharge cavalry, I think.
Yeah.
Or like use it, charge into your opponent's cavalry in their turn. Like that's a fantastic.
Literally countercharge. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
They're going to hit pretty hard when they do that.
it's a lot of
6
attacks.
that do charge. Yeah.
And Ren 2 on the lance against cavalry.
Yeah. Otherwise, the health and the save are the same. They have 2 control. They would have had 2 control before because they had 5 wounds.
Yeah.
Because they're big, chunky models. More healing. Hey, bro.
Yeah.
I heard you like healing.
Yeah.
Hey, dog.
These guys are effectively you'll if one is alive, you will heal back up to full, right? If you left one alive on 1 wound, it's going to heal back up.
Yeah, previously they did it at the end of each phase, but they had to kill an enemy model with an attack made by them. So really, it was only in the combat phase.
Yeah, now any turn, they just do this.
And and if you had any wounds on the guy, yeah, now it's just the end of any turn. And then they previously they had a strike first if they charged. Now it's on a dice roll of a 3+.
If they charge. So yeah, and we're kind of seeing that. Strike first, strike last are becoming very rarely are we seeing for sure things. I think only the Night Haunt one and maybe 1 or 2 others have I seen that it's like it actually happens. It doesn't depend on the roll. I like it. It's a huge gamble and a risk though, man. Wow. Like you said, countercharging your opponent's turn and then maybe getting strike first, probably, but maybe not. Like, ugh. More so, as we've been saying, it's almost a deterrent for your opponent, right? Your opponent is more thinking, okay, I'll probably hopefully they roll 1 or 2, but I can absolutely not count on that. While you're on the other side of the table being like, hopefully I do this, spend 2 CP, charge in, and then roll a 3 up. Otherwise, oops, right? Yeah, we'll see. I'm curious. I'm curious about that mechanism. Yeah.
It is a bit dicey. There's one more thing I want to say that previously this was one of the units that had 2 really funky abilities on its musician and standard bearer. Previously they could pile in 6 from the standard, and then they rallied on a 5+ from the standard bearer.
Yeah.
Rallying a 5 in 3rd edition, rallying a 5 wound model on a 5+
very good
was kind of bonkers.
Yep.
So they don't have that anymore, but you're also still in the army that has lots of healing. The rally is still a bonus you get for command units. It's toned down. Like everything we're seeing, it's a recurring theme.
Yeah. I'm very curious if Dryads will have a special rule where it's like if they would have healed, you just bring a model back instead. I'm honestly kind of curious if that's like going to be their special rule. So all the healing that we see all over this book is like just because Dryads are 1 wound. Everything else in this army is 2 wounds, essentially, right?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, Dryads are the only model I think.
I'm kind of curious if Dryads will get like a bizarre. If this unit would have had a heal effect, bring a unit back for each point that was healed instead, or something. Okay. The only other thing worth pointing out here is we do get a War Scroll. And we get the Kurnoth Hunters, and actually it's some interesting changes, especially the bow guys. Brad, you and I have talked a lot about the bow guys and how they seem not worth it compared to the scythe and the sword guys in the current edition. We have to see the scythe and the horn guys, but what are you thinking based on this War Scroll?
Yeah, I think this might be one of the ones where the Spearhead War Scroll is almost identical to the full AOS War Scroll.
I'm gonna guess.
Yeah. We know the attack profiles are supposed to be the same. It's nice that they hit on 3s now. That always was kind of a bummer. You had these really chunky, expensive elite archers that hit on 4s.
Yep.
The range is quite a bit reduced.
Yeah.
I think previously it was 3 inches.
30,
now
right?
It's 18.
30, yeah, we kind of knew this was coming. We knew this was coming, but I think we thought maybe 24.
Yeah. A lot of this is going to depend on the points costs.
Yeah.
Sylvaneth third edition is a very, very expensive army. This is
Expensive. Yep.
3 of these guys. I think is 220 or 230 points.
Yeah, too much.
Yeah, a bit too much. Yeah, I like that they're hitting them just winning on 3s now. And I still would be interested in running them. It'll kind of depend on how the rest of the army shakes out.
Yeah, we haven't seen the Arch Revenant. Maybe he gives the plus to wound now to shooting. They've lost Trample underfoot. Their save went from 3 to 4. That's big. I actually do think, Brad, they mostly said stats are staying the same. So, I think that's what they said. So I guess Kurnoths are going to have a 4-up. If I'm wrong about that, then that might not surprise me if they toned that down for Spearhead, but I think they said they're staying the same. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Kurnoths are force now.
Okay. This army has historically been an army I've thought of as lacking wards. We saw one on Lario, but nobody else really has one. These guys giving a ward, we were talking about this. These guys giving a ward, honestly, is strong. For a support ability. Their current extra ability isn't very interesting, if I remember correctly. Each of the Kurnoths, depending on what they're armed with, have a different little ability, if I remember right.
Yeah, I think actually these guys didn't get one.
They didn't even have one. That's right.
Yeah, they didn't even have one.
I like the idea. If this transfers to full AOS, I do really like the idea that these guys can sit on an objective. I know that objectives are sticky in Sigmar, but you often still are fighting for them. And I like the idea that these guys can kind of sit there, shoot, and also pass out 6-up ward to the Dryads, screening them. Kind of cool.
Yeah.
Okay, we're getting close to time. We're closing the poll. I had a few options. How much wood are you managing this morning because of the Sylvaneth preview? Just a Dryad's worth? Were you keeping it at a Kurnoth? Do you have a very awakened Wildwood? Or are you maximum Tree Lord Ancient right now? And as we always like to, typically we've been seeing these results. The second to most excited one has won. People excited? We'll see. A lot kind of changed in this book. Brad, Khorne tomorrow. Anything in particular looking forward to?
Blood Tithe. What are they doing with the Blood Tithe? Because it was tied into summoning before, and it was there. Generate points to summon, or you can use it for this other thing. Really curious to see what they do with that. It's possible it might just go away entirely, in which case, who knows what the army does.
Yeah.
I'm excited, though, because I really want to see Khorne become a little more nasty in combat, nastier than it is now.
Yeah, you want smash face Khorne, not tactical sneaky Khorne. Yeah.
There's a little tactics, but then once you get in combat, you should be terrified.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, we're gonna see Brad tomorrow when we come back and talk about Khorne. We'll say bye to him for now. Bye, Brad. Just a reminder for our schedule as we say goodbye here today. And that's it. Yeah, I think we did it. Thanks for joining us as always. We'll be back tomorrow to chat Khorne, and we will be here Saturday actually at 10 a.m. For kind of a weekly recap show as we get deeper and closer to 4th edition. I think that's it. Thanks everybody for tuning in. See you guys.